my son. I want him to be at school without an aide in a general education classroom. I think he could do it, just not in a class of 45. That is what his current junior high classes have. Is class size part of environment? Can't we request a smaller class size? School says no, but that is what would make my son more productive. Okay, that's a great question, and to some extent it folds into what I was going to talk about if we had time later today on the show, which is the trend I'm seeing, a strong trend in the direction of parents placing their kids in private school and suing the district for reimbursement. And a lot of the reason parents are having to do that is because the public schools don't have good programs for specific learning disabilities, and because the public schools don't have really trained behavior therapists who can effectively intervene in the classroom and on the playground and so on. This viewer is asking a related question. She's saying, do I have a right to have a school that has fewer, children in it, a classroom that has fewer children in it than a general ed classroom? So the first problem is that in California, the numbers of students in middle school and high school is overwhelming for everyone. The schools are too big. It's overwhelming for the teachers. They can't keep up. It's overwhelming for the administrators. It's overwhelming for the kids. And it produces a feeling, in my view, of alienation rather than being part of something that feels good. So class sizes are too large. And a class of 45 is too large for general ed students. So if your student needs a small class to be successful, a small general ed class to be successful, and he can't be able to succeed in a class of 45, you're right. Why would you make him become dependent on an aide if he could function perfectly well in a class of 25? So there's not going to be an appropriate special education classroom on his high school or middle school campus that's going to be exactly like a general ed class, except for there's going to be fewer kids. I mean, the districts try things like they'll have a class that has, usually called a co-lab. It'll be like a lot of general ed students, but then some special ed students, and then they'll have a general ed teacher and a special education teacher. But in that environment, you'd have to evaluate that class independently and see whether it was suitable or not. And if he needs a class that's purely general ed and is smaller, and that's the recommendation that's being made for him by a professional that you've worked with who's evaluated him, that's when we end up in the situation where parents are unilaterally placing their children in private schools and suing for tuition reimbursement. Because to get a student a class of general ed students where the numbers aren't so huge, certain parents are going to the private schools, and the private school tuition runs anywhere from $15,000 to $60,000, and districts are getting pretty upset about the fact that more and more people are opting out of the public school system. But they don't want to opt out of the public school system, and they don't want to litigate. They want to have a real continuum of options. And since there isn't, if this is needed to provide FAPE and it's not available in the public schools, and the only way you can get them in a general ed class is to make it more restrictive by putting an aide in place, then I think that's a good place to start the discussion about how we do unilateral private placements. Now, I understand that this is not an option for a lot of people, because to pay for private tuition and engage an attorney at the same time is a significant financial undertaking. But I don't really have another way right now that I can think of to get that class for somebody. So that's my answer to question one.
Okay. I like it. Do you want to move on to the next one, and do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
I'll read it.
Okay.
But I want to say I don't like this situation with the private schools at all. I don't like that there aren't enough good non-public schools that are out there, And the reason that's true is because the public schools have strangled the non-public schools and grossly underpaid them, and they can't create a robust program for a child like, with autism for $125 a day or whatever LAUSD pays. I hate telling parents, I have phone call now after phone call, and parents say, well, what schools are out there? And I say, I'm going to go down the list with you, and it's slim pickings. From San Diego to Santa Barbara, there are not enough appropriate schools. So I don't like the trend at all. It's very concerning to me, and it is clearly what's happening.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.